My sister framed me for her crime. Now I own the life she tried to steal. My name is Lena. I used to believe blood was thicker than water until my sister made sure mine spilled. I was 25 the year my life was stolen. Not just my job, my reputation, or my freedom, but my very name dragged through the mud while my sister smiled in the spotlight she carved from my ruin. Growing up, Celine was the golden child and was 2 years older, breathtakingly beautiful, charismatic from the womb, and always just a little too good at pretending. She knew how to cry on cue, how to spin a lie like silk, and how to weaponize a smile so warm it could melt even the sharpest suspicion. Me, I was the quiet one, the fixer, the one who stayed up past midnight typing her college essays, hiding late fees on her credit cards covering for her when she borrowed things that mysteriously never came back. But I loved her. I thought that's what sisters did. We lived with our mother in a modest home just outside of Savannah, Georgia. Our father had passed when we were young, and from that moment on, it was like Celine took it upon herself to fill the role of both chaos and charm. Mama adored her. Always did. I sometimes wondered if she even remembered she had two daughters. After college, I poured everything into building my career. I studied finance, graduated with honors, and landed a solid job at a startup focused on eco-friendly housing. I dreamed of one day launching my own firm, a place where innovation met integrity. Celine. She bounced from job to job, boyfriend to boyfriend, but she always landed on her feet. Heels, polished nails, perfect lies rehearsed. One summer, she showed up at my door dressed in a silk blouse and crocodile heels and said, "I've met someone. He's different and I need your help, baby sis." His name was Aaron Wexler, wealthy, sophisticated. Owned several real estate development firms in Atlanta. Celine said he was the one. But she needed a way to prove she was more than a pretty face. She wanted to start her own real estate management firm and wanted me to help get the paperwork right. I remember the pitch like it was yesterday. "Lena, you're the smart one. I trust you with my life. I just need you to be listed as the temporary CEO for tax reasons. It's only on paper." I should have said no, but when your mother looks at you for the first time in months with pride, when your sister says, "I'd fall apart without you," you convince yourself love is reason enough. So I signed. The paperwork seemed legitimate, at least on the surface. I didn't know Celine was using my name to launder money through shell properties, falsify expense reports, and move large chunks of Aaron's investment funds into accounts under aliases. She said she'd handle all the operations, and I was busy with my actual job, so I didn't dig deeper. Until the morning they came for me, I was brushing my teeth when I saw the flashing lights. 4 agents in dark suits, a warrant, handcuffs. "Ms. Lena Graves, you are under arrest for financial fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to defraud investors." I laughed. I thought it was a prank. It wasn't. In the station, I demanded a lawyer. I told them I had no idea what they were talking about, but every file, every signature, every transaction traced back to me because Celine had made sure of it. She used the business account in my name, forged my e-signatures, and manipulated every piece of communication between her and Aaron's company. Even worse, when they asked her to testify, she cried on the stand and said she had no idea I was capable of this. I trusted her. "She's my little sister," she sobbed. I had no idea she'd steal from me, from us. Her tears were the final nail. The judge called me a cunning thief in sheep's clothing. I was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison with time served, counting toward investigation delays. 2 years. Celine didn't even show up the day I was taken away. I remember looking around the courtroom. No family, no mother, no friends. Just silence and Celine's perfectly curved lips in the corner, smirking. But I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just made a promise to myself in that moment, walking through the steel doors of a place no innocent girl should ever see. One day I'd make her pay, and not by breaking the law. No, I'd beat her at her own game with silence, with truth, and with the power she never thought I had from nothing. I began again, quietly, ruthlessly, alone. Prison doesn't just take your freedom, it takes your dignity, one sliver at a time. At first, I counted the days, then I stopped counting. Then I started planning. I was inmate 4712B at Lakeshore Correctional Facility for Women. 2 years may not sound like much, but when you've been painted as a criminal by the person you trusted most in the world, 2 years is eternity. I never received a single letter, not from Celine, not from our mother, not even from the so-called friends who used to say I was too pure for this world. At night, I'd lie on my bunk and whisper questions to no one. Why didn't she visit me? Why didn't she at least say sorry? Why was I still defending her in my head? I should have hated her. But what I felt was worse. Nothing. A kind of numb that scared me. So I forced myself to feel again through focus. I started working in the prison's bookkeeping department. Every file I handled reminded me of the accounting ledgers I once loved. I asked for books on white-collar crime, on finance law, on digital forensics. I devoured knowledge like a starving thing. What better way to rebuild than to understand the system Celine had twisted against me? I began piecing together every memory I had of the months before my arrest. Her sudden business trips, her reluctance to show me financial statements, the NDA she made me sign for protection. Even the way she called me my golden goose when she thought I wasn't paying attention. In one moment, she made me the face of a fraudulent empire. In another, she washed her hands clean with tears and mascara. But I wouldn't confront her with rage. I'd confront her with receipts. 2 years passed, and on a rainy Tuesday morning, I stepped outside those prison gates with two things. One, a cardboard box holding the clothes I came in with. Two, a small hard drive hidden in my shoe, containing every record, news clipping, and legal document I could access from the prison's outdated library. Nobody was waiting for me, not that I expected anyone. The apartment I used to rent had long been sold. My LinkedIn page was flooded with comments like, "So disappointing," and "Knew she was too good to be true." My degree was still valid, but my reputation was radioactive. I rented a single room behind a laundromat, slept on a thin mattress, and worked nights delivering food under a fake name. But during the day, I worked on my case. I learned to scrub metadata from emails. I traced shell companies back to foreign accounts that led not to me but to names Celine once used in her high school novels. I rebuilt every financial trail she thought she'd buried. Meanwhile, Celine flourished. She became the media darling of Atlanta's female entrepreneur boom. She was featured in Forbes Local, launched a podcast about ethical investing, and even spoke at panels about trust in business. And my mother. She posted a photo of Celine holding an award with the caption, "My pride, my firstborn." She rebuilt everything after what her sister did. I stared at that caption for hours. They had erased me, turned me into a villain in their story, but they forgot one thing. Villains remember everything. The turning point came 6 months after I got out. I walked into a local tech workshop, a free community session on cybersecurity. There, I met Milo, a data analyst turned freelancer who smelled of energy drinks and revenge. He asked why I was there. I said I want to unerase myself. Milo laughed. That's the best reason I've heard all week. He became my first real ally. Helped me crack old server data, restore deleted messages, and build a timeline of transactions that would make any auditor cry. We worked in silence for weeks until one night he looked at me and said, "Lena, this isn't just enough to prove your innocence. This is enough to burn her entire empire to the ground." I didn't smile, I just whispered, "Not yet," because timing was everything. It started with a gala invitation, not to me, of course, to Milo, who had recently picked up contract work for one of Atlanta's fastest-growing real estate tech firms, the same firm where Celine just happened to be speaking at the company's annual charity gala. "She's the keynote," he said, showing me the flyer with her picture. "You coming?" I stared at her face on the poster, the carefully curated curls, the half-smile of polished deceit. The headline, "Celine Graves from Pain to Power, a Story of Redemption." She had turned my destruction into her fairy tale. My hands didn't shake, not anymore. Instead, I simply nodded. I'm not going to the gala. She is... Over the next 2 weeks, Milo and I planned everything. We didn't just want to expose her. We wanted to make sure the world saw the truth and remembered it. We began with a silent campaign, emails sent anonymously to major investors she was pitching. Subject line, "Before you sign, you should see this." Inside, a link to a password-protected folder titled "Celine's Real Empire," complete with dates, receipts, transaction trails, and a short, calm audio narration. You're about to partner with someone who built her empire on lies and on the life of her own sister. This is Lena Graves. I'm not dead, and I'm not silent anymore. We didn't release everything at once. We let it simmer. The night of the gala arrived. Celine walked into the crystal-lit ballroom of the Lenox Pavilion, wearing a red gown flanked by two assistants and her fiancé, Mark Renshaw, a young rising political figure known for his stance on moral capitalism. She smiled at the cameras. She gave a speech titled, "Turning Trials into Triumph." She thanked her family who never gave up on her. Then came the part she didn't expect. The event organizers interrupted with a surprise video tribute allegedly submitted by her fiancé's team as a celebration of her journey. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up. It began with a home video. Two girls as children, Celine pushing a younger Lena on a swing, their mother laughing in the background. Then documents appeared, bank records, emails, voice notes, with Celine's voice instructing someone to forge Lena's name. Just use the signature from the loan form. A brief silence. And then my voice filled the ballroom. My name is Lena Graves. 2 years ago, I was convicted of a crime orchestrated by the person I trusted most, my sister. This is not a plea for pity. This is a record, because truth may sleep, but it never dies. And tonight, I wake it up, gasps, whispers. The screen faded to black, leaving only a single sentence. Integrity begins when silence ends. The aftermath was immediate. Mark Renshaw stepped back from Celine as if she had just combusted. Her assistant stared, stunned. The room once full of applause was now thick with shame. Celine tried to laugh it off, claimed it was a deep fake, a malicious attack. But within an hour, investors were calling for audits. One news outlet published a headline by midnight. Rising Star or Master Fraud, the real story of Celine Graves begins to surface. And me, I didn't even attend the gala. I watched it all from my apartment, live-streamed by an attendee, as Celine's empire began to unravel in real time. The final move, Milo helped me submit everything to the State Ethics Board, the IRS, and the Attorney General's office. We didn't just aim for exposure, we aimed for legal consequence. But I wasn't done yet, because there was one more person who needed to hear from me, our mother. 3 days after the gala, Celine went dark. Her Instagram, once a waterfall of curated brunches, speaking engagements, and designer heels, was wiped clean. The comments on her last post. Brutal, you let your sister rot in jail for your crimes. Hope they give you the same cell she had, from boss babe to fraud queen iconic. But social media hate wasn't the goal. I didn't want to humiliate her. I wanted accountability. I wanted justice. I wanted silence no more. The first real consequence landed 2 weeks later. The IRS froze her accounts. Then the state attorney's office subpoenaed her company records. Investors pulled out. Her fiancé Mark, who once introduced her as a symbol of resilience, released a public statement. I was deceived, and I will be cooperating fully with authorities to ensure justice is served. Celine tried to fight back. She hired a crisis PR firm, gave a pre-recorded interview claiming she was misled by Lena and had no idea, but she underestimated something. The receipts talked louder than her rehearsed tears. Milo and I had already submitted 246 pages of compiled documents dated verified and cross-referenced with both civil and criminal law firms ready to act. I didn't stop there. Next, I requested a judicial review of my conviction. It wasn't easy. I had to relive every humiliating detail, retell every lie that had been told about me. But this time I walked into court with a team of pro bono lawyers, financial experts, and Milo sitting in the back row, arms crossed like a quiet soldier. Celine never showed up. Her lawyer tried to dismiss the motion as a witch hunt, but when I played the voice memo, Celine giving instructions to forge Lena's signature on the offshore transfer, the courtroom went still. My conviction was officially overturned. The judge's final words, Ms. Graves, this court owes you an apology that no sentence can fix. But the law will do its part now. I stepped outside the courthouse to a waiting press crew. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just said, I'm not here to celebrate. I'm here to rebuild and to remind every silent victim, you are not crazy and you are not alone. A month later, Celine was arrested. Charges wire fraud, perjury, financial misrepresentation, and obstruction of justice. She was denied bail. As the cuffs clicked onto her wrists, cameras captured the moment and someone yelled from the crowd, "Where's your sister now, Celine?" Funny thing was, I wasn't there either. I was across the city finalizing paperwork with a firm that had just offered me a senior financial strategist role. They saw the case and said, "You didn't just survive. You executed one of the most well-documented comebacks we've seen." I accepted. Not because I wanted the title, but because they gave me something I never had before, respect built on truth. And then came the knock. Late at night, my door. I opened it and there she was. My mother, gray streaks in her hair, wrinkles. I hadn't noticed before, eyes heavy. She didn't say hello. She just whispered, "I didn't know, Lena. I swear to God, I didn't know." I let her stand there, let the silence sting. Then I stepped aside and said, "I'll make you tea. You can sit." "But we're not going to pretend this didn't happen," she nodded. And for the first time in my life, my mother listened. 6 months after Celine's arrest, the world had already moved on. News cycles rotated to newer scandals, flashier frauds. But for me, the silence that followed was not emptiness, it was peace. Real peace. Not the kind you fake to avoid confrontation, not the quiet of swallowing your screams, but the kind that fills a room when no one expects you to explain yourself anymore. I moved into a small but sun-filled apartment downtown. No grandeur, no marble countertops or velvet curtains like Celine's fake empire used to flaunt. Just bookshelves, plants, and space to breathe. My days began with coffee and long walks. I was back in finance, yes, but on my terms this time. The firm I joined asked me to lead an ethics and recovery initiative for whistleblowers and wrongfully accused professionals. We created resources, networks, and legal support for people who'd been railroaded like I was. And Milo, he became head of digital security for the program. He even started calling me boss. We laughed about it often. There was something healing in building something real after watching a kingdom of lies collapse. For the first time in years, I felt like my life belonged to me again. One day, I received a letter handwritten from Celine. It was delivered through her attorney now that she was awaiting trial. The handwriting was still elegant, loops perfect, pressure soft. Just like always. "Lena, I don't know what to say except that I thought I was smarter. I thought I'd get away with it. I convinced myself you'd forgive me because that's what you always did. But I see now that you became the one thing I never prepared for. Stronger than me. Maybe prison will teach me what you already learned in silence. I'm sorry. Celine." I didn't cry. I didn't write back. I folded the letter, placed it in a box labeled "Closure," and set it at the back of my closet. Not because I needed to remember, but because I never wanted to forget what survival looked like. And then came the call. A journalist who had followed my story wanted to feature me in a national documentary series about women who fought back against financial and familial betrayal. She asked, "Do you want to be remembered as a victim or a warrior?" I said, "Neither." She blinked. I smiled. "I want to be remembered as a woman who told the truth and waited for the world to catch up." Months later, I stood on stage, this time not in a courtroom or in a live-streamed takedown, but at a university graduation. They invited me to speak to a class of young women entering the finance industry. I told them everything. Not the sensational parts, but the quiet ones. The nights I doubted my own memory, the days I felt invisible, the moment I realized the only person who could rewrite my story was me. I ended my speech with a line that now lives in my bones. Sometimes family will bury you, but if you dig deep enough, you'll find that your roots were never theirs to cut. The students stood, applauded, and somewhere in the crowd my mother sat quiet, humble, and learning to listen after years of speaking over me. She didn't cheer the loudest. She didn't need to, because this time I wasn't looking for her approval. I already had mine.